Hello, I'm Gary, and welcome to another episode of Physical Format Rock and Roll, where we talk about all things rock and roll and classic metal. This will be another episode of Album Fight. This is where I like to take two albums that I like and pit them against each other. The only rules are that they have to have something somewhat similar about them. They don't necessarily have to be from the same artist, but that always helps. So today's album fight is a pretty big one. We have a band that I love, that I'm sure many of you do, and that is Queen. And the albums that I have picked to go against each other today is Night at the Opera versus A Day at the Races. So, these albums are very similar in the way that they sound. They're basically a two-part record, in my opinion. This is a certain point in time that Queen had reached. Night at the Opera was their fourth album. Day at the Races was their fifth. Night at the Opera was released in 1975. At that time, it was the most expensive album made. It took a long time to make the album. Took a lot of fighting with the record company to get it made because they weren't necessarily happy with some of the direction that Queen was taking. But as we all know, it worked out pretty good. So, 1975. A Night at the Opera is released. Now, this is, by some people, considered Queen's best album. And that's saying quite a lot, considering the discography that Queen has had. So let's go over the tracks here. Excuse me, I gotta put on my glasses because I'm half blind. So the album starts out very strongly with Death on Two Legs. This one was written by Freddie Mercury, and it is about a manager that they had, or their co-manager, who they felt that they were not being treated fairly with, and they sacked him. The song starts out, this album, with a very strong presence, and it is a rocker. It's a nasty little piece of work with spitting guitar licks by Brian May throughout this that just go perfectly with these lyrics. These lyrics are pretty nasty, and it's just a great song. It's a great way to start out an album, and it gets you prepared for what's coming ahead. Now, after that, we go to another Freddie Mercury penned song, Lazing on a Sunday Afternoon, which, after the incredible Death on Two Legs, is kind of a downer. So, Lazing on a Sunday Afternoon is one of those type of songs that only Queen could do. It's basically like some kind of ragtag type song, you know, when you're singing through the megaphone, Lazing on one of those type songs. Queen would do those songs from time to time. They'd already had one song like that on a previous album. I don't know that they really needed to do another one like that. It really, I think, especially coming after Death on Two Legs, the song just seems borderline silly. Only Queen and the Beatles and the Kinks seem to be able to do these type of songs and get away with them. In this case, maybe not so much. And then comes Roger Taylor's I'm in Love with My Car. Now, if you have seen the Bohemian Rhapsody movie, then you know how he got kidded quite a bit about doing this song, a song about a car and everything. But this is a very good song. It brings the album back up. I have always liked this song. That's why I had to laugh during the movie when they were making fun of it so much. Yes, lyrically, you know, it doesn't quite match up with some of the other material Queen does, but I think it makes a nice change of pace. Another thing that I need to say about this is this album very much solidifies the idea of Queen being a band, okay? Queen was not Freddie Mercury and the other guys, right? Everybody writes in Queen. Queen was very much a solid band. Everybody in this band was extremely talented and all capable of writing great songs, as this album and the next album proves. To my point, the next song is You're My Best Friend, okay? This was written by John Deacon. This is his contribution to this album. He doesn't write nearly as many songs, but he does have a tendency to write some pretty darn good ones when he does. This song is definitely more of a pop feel of the song, and it is kind of different than the rest of it, but it fits in well. The rest of the band was actually not a fan of this song, to the point where Freddie Mercury refused to play the electric piano part that you hear in that song, and so John Deacon himself had to play that. Little note there for you. Coming up next is 39. Now here we are with a Brian May song, which he actually sings too. And this song is some sort of, I'm not exactly sure, it's some sort of sci-fi type song where the people are leaving the planet and they're gone for a year in their mind, or in their reality. It's some kind of time travel type thing. But when they come back, it's been like a long time, a very long time. And many people that they knew were dead and gone. And they're basically, everybody they knew is gone. They're alone. They've been gone, I'm not sure if it, like maybe 100 years or something. So it doesn't sound like it, but it's an odd sci-fi song. It's an acoustic number. It's very catchy. It's a nice little song that Queen has done quite a bit over the years in their set list, including doing it, I believe, with Adam Lambert. Of course, Brian May would sing it, so you know that would work out well. Next up, we have another Brian May tune, "Sweet Lady." This is a more up-tempo one, not one of my favorites on the album. It's an okay song, but it's nothing that fantastic when it comes to being compared to some of the other Queen songs. Seaside Rendezvous by Mercury is up next, and that one is, you know, once again, one of those type songs that only Queen, and mostly with Freddie Mercury writing it, could do. It's a fun little number. It's not one that I would necessarily call one of their greatest ones either. Starting outside too is a pretty cool song called the Prophet Song. Prophet Song, in my mind, is a great song, except it suffers a bit from being a little too long, a little long-winded. Now it's got that whole cool part in there, that a cappella stuff where they're all singing, and you know, they've got the echo and everything going on in there, and that's really interesting to hear. But at the same time, it goes on maybe just a little too long. I think it could have been edited down a little bit, and this song would have been that much better. Next is a classic, Love of My Life. This, of course, is penned by Freddie Mercury. This is a song that has been done many times in concert, to the point where it's a sing-along for the crowd. They do it now when they do their shows with Adam Lambert, and they do it with Freddie Mercury singing it on a screen behind. It's a very cool effect. It sounds ridiculous, but it actually works, and the crowd sings along. Very good song, very touching song. I believe this was written for his girlfriend that he had at the time, and as we know, that was not to be. That was not Freddie's nature, but he did love this woman. pretty much his entire life. And this song was dedicated to her. Up next, we have another Brian May song called Good Company. This is a pretty decent song too. It's kind of, it's more of a slower one, and it is, you know, it's an odd song. A lot of people do not like this song. It's interesting. It's not one, I guess, that I would want to hear all the time, but once again, it's a Queen song that only they could do. It does kind of start to bring the album down maybe a little bit. And then after that, of course, to fill out the album, you have the epic Bohemian Rhapsody. I don't really know what else I can say about Bohemian Rhapsody that hasn't already been said, that you don't already know. It is one of the classic songs of all time. It's probably one that maybe a lot of us are kind of, a little tired of, because we've heard it so much. And unfortunately, that tends to water down the epic greatness of this song. If you can actually go for a period of time and not hear this song, like if you're driving in your car and it comes on the radio, turn it down for a while, try not to listen to it. If you can go for a while and then come back to it and, play your album, play your CD or whatever, when you're just in the right frame of mind and you're just listening to that song, it's just a tremendous song. Freddie Mercury showed signs of genius with this song. This was very hard to get done. Obviously, it's a complicated song. That's the gem of this album. A classic album. Queen, A Night at the Opera. So what's it going to go against? Like I said, Queen, A Day at the Races. So they're sticking with their Marx Brothers themes as far as that. Those were movies. Night at the Opera and A Day at the Races were both movies by the Marx Brothers. Queen themselves thought that these albums were pretty much bookends, so that's why they stuck with that motif. One was white, one was black. Still kept that same kind of theme there on the cover of the album, so these are very much tied together. This, I should say also that this era, these albums right here, were my introduction to Queen as a boy. I think I was 11 when I got my first Queen album. Night at the Opera had already been out. Day at the Races came out, and I actually had it on 8-track, so that shows you how long ago it was. And these were my introduction to this band, and they will always be Queen to me, even though I love all the other different evolutions of Queen and the stuff that came before this. But a lot of times when I think of Queen, it's hard for me not to think of this type of music that they did on these two albums. So anyway, let's go through Day at the Races, shall we? Day at the Races, much like Night at the Opera, starts off with a hard rocking song. Probably the hardest song on both albums is the first one. And this one is a brilliant song by Brian May, once again, who starts out the album, Tie Your Mother Down. Oh, I'm sorry. Freddie Mercury's song started out the other album. I don't want to sound like an idiot on here. Brian May wrote this song, Tie Your Mother Down. I love this song. It's just a good rocking song. The guitar on there, everything is just heavy. And the words are very humorous in my mind. I think it's very funny. I've always enjoyed that song. So once again, album starts out with this great rocking song. You're like, oh man, I'm on a epic journey here with these records. Coming up next is You Take My Breath Away. Once again, they start out with a hard rocking song, then go on to something slower. Unlike A Night at the Opera, though, where the next song is kind of jokey, You Take My Breath Away is a beautiful song. The vocals on it are just fantastic. It's a very moving song, and even though it slows down the album from that epic opening song, it just continues. It just shows you the talent and of Queen and just how they can go from boom here to there. Of course, this one was written by Freddie Mercury. And then we have Long Away, which was written by Brian May. Now this one, unlike, like I said, a couple of the other songs on Night at the Opera by Brian May were maybe, you know, a little more sketchy. This one is slower, but this is a great song. I love this song, and Brian May also sings this one. It's a lot of acoustic in this song, but it's just a good song. It sounds like it could have been written 10 years before that. It's a nice sing-along type song. Going from there, we go to The Millionaire Waltz, which is another one of those quirky type songs, but it also has a part towards the end where the rest of the band comes in kind of rocking. So it manages to work more because of that. It's a very, very odd song in the time signatures and things. And once again, only Queen could do this song. So everything in my mind so far is pretty steady. And then we go to John Deacon's contribution on this album. Once again, his song is a slower, or not slower, just a more mellow kind of popish song. You and I like this song just as well as I do You're My Best Friend that he wrote on the previous album, which I think is another fantastic pop rock type song. You and I is a nice, catchy song. It's just, this whole first side here, just all good songs, even though a lot of it is more mellow after that raucous opening. They're all catchy, good songs. You can hear a lot of influences, maybe, you know, at times by the Beatles, I think, in some of this material. Side 2 starts off with the epic Somebody to Love. This song was written by Freddie Mercury, and it's obvious that he had a love of Aretha Franklin. It shows up in this one. This sounds almost like it is like a gospel song at times, and the vocals in this, once again, great. This is another epic song only Queen could do, right? Coming up next, all right, now we're back into one of those hard rocking songs by Queen. This one, once again, written by Brian May, White Man. Now, I've heard some people, critics, complain about this song because it's about the plight of Native Americans, and they find it to be a rather pretentious song. But I think it works. You know, maybe the lyrics are a little controversial to some people, but I've always liked this song. It is just, the guitar on it is super heavy. This is one of those hard rockin' Queen songs that you just can't help but love. Going from that, it's another one of those quirky Freddie Mercury songs, good old-fashioned lover boy. In my mind, if there is a weak point on this album, it might be this song. I mean, I'm still okay with it. I'm okay with this song. I don't love it, but it's an okay song. Going from that, Roger Taylor, where's his song? Here it is. It's Drowse. So this, once again, and he sings this, by the way. He also, I don't know if I said it, but he's saying I'm in love with my car. Those are his vocals. I like hearing Roger Taylor do some lead vocals. I think he has a pretty good voice. And Drowse is one of my favorite songs on this album, actually. And this is packed full of good albums. He does a really good job on here. This song, it's got some pretty good slide guitar work in it by Brian May. And I really don't know how to describe it, except it definitely has a different feeling from it. The vocals, it almost at times has a David Bowie kind of feel to it. And it's more of it's a rocking song, but it's a slower song at the same time. that at times has like a dreamlike quality to it, which henceforth the name Drowse, I guess. Love that song. Finishes up with another Brian May song, which I also like a lot, and that is Teo Toriate, or Let Us Cling Together. Now, some of the vocals, some of the lyrics in here are Japanese. This was kind of a love letter to their Japanese fans. This is a good way to finish out this album. It is a slower, it's kind of similar in a way to Drowse, where it's a slower song, but it also has a rocking feel to it, if that makes any sense to anybody. But it's got good vocals in it, and it's just good musicianship all the way through. So, what do we got here? Two fantastic albums, right? By one of the greatest bands to come out of the 70s. A Day at the Races and Night at the Opera. I said them backwards, didn't I? Now, I realize that A Day at the Races, A Night at the Opera has Bohemian Rhapsody, one of the greatest rock songs of all time. And I won't deny that. But for me personally, it's this album. And it's really not that hard for me to decide that. As much as I love a lot of Night at the Opera, like I said, there's still, there's some points in there where it's lacking a bit. And I think this is pretty strong all the way through. Day at the Races, I think, is, if not the best, one of Queen's best albums. And I have always loved this album, and I would pick it pretty much every day of the week over A Night at the Opera. So in this album fight, that's our winner. It would have to go to a decision. I don't know that it's a knockout, but it'll go to a 12-round decision. Split decision at that. So I thank you for watching this show. I'd love to hear what some of your comments are on these albums. I might be the only person out there who would pick Day at the Races over Night at the Opera. I don't know. So if you'd like to make any comments, that would be great. And if you want to subscribe to that channel, I would really appreciate it. My name is Gary, and this is Physical Format Rock and Roll. I will see you next time.